Welcome to the Cougar Mountain Software Denali demonstration video. Denali is a powerful and flexible system designed to accommodate the accounting needs of your organization. The Denali accounting system can be set up for your organization as needed for the different parts of the accounting system that you may or may not need for your business. So what we'll do today is we're going to give a brief demonstration on how the Denali accounting system works. We're going to start by going into the first part of the Denali accounting system, which is what we call the Denali controller. The Denali controller is where you go in and you set up your organization information. And in setting up your organization, Denali allows you to set up multiple company or organization files as needed if you need to track multiple companies. But most clients will probably just set up a single company for their overall organization. The organization information is set up by entering your company or organization name, address, and the specific information is needed for your organization. The controller is sort of the gateway for the Denali accounting system. This is where you set up your organization. This is also where you set up the different users that will be using your accounting software. The user setup can be specific as needed for what users are allowed or not allowed to do. Specifically, you can give them access to an entire accounting module, or you can specify what functions within that module that the users are allowed to do or not allowed to do as needed, which allows you to set your security in your accounting system right down to the very specific function. You can also set up user groups that allows you to set up the same user rights for an entire group of users. And you can set group policies based on the group rights, and then you assign each user to the groups, and it gives them automatic rights to those group rights. That's very handy if you have a large number of employees that will be using the accounting system, or you have a high turnover rate for volunteer work or people that come and go in your organization as needed. The controller is also where you set up your accounting fiscal calendar. And in Denali, each accounting period is a monthly period, but you can also add an extra period at the end of the fiscal year for year-end entries as needed. And the fiscal calendar can be set up to go all the way out to 5 years as needed for your organization for planning and forecasting. The controller is where you run the basic tasks for maintaining your company database. Specifically, you want to run your backup and your restore operations as needed when you want to secure your company data file. The backup and restore will be your two best friends in the Denali system. You want to run backups regularly just to make sure your data is secure and safe, and then only run a restore if you lose your company data or you need to restore your company file back to a previous point. So the controller is basically the gateway to entering your Denali system. All of the accounting is done through the other parts of the system, and that can be accessed through the toolbar here at the top. So you can click on any one of these buttons and the system will switch over to that particular accounting module. Specifically, we click on General Ledger and the system switches over to the General Ledger module. The General Ledger is where you set up your core accounting structure for your organization. You set up your chart of accounts here in the General Ledger, and you can be as detailed or as simple as you want when structuring your chart of accounts. The chart of accounts or categories is what you set up here to track all of your revenues, expenses, all of your assets, liabilities, net assets, and so forth. And the chart of accounts are used to process your transactions and to track your financial reports and your organization's financial health. The General Ledger is also where you make basic journal entries. The journal entries are used for basic adjustments as needed, and it's a very simple system. You just put in the date, the description, and then you specify which accounts you're adjusting by debiting or crediting the specific accounts on the journal entry. As long as your debits and credits match at the bottom, you're good to go. Denali Fund Accounting specializes in nonprofit or government accounting setup. And if you have the Denali Fund Accounting Suite, you can set up your different funds or grants or funding sources as needed for your organization. That way you're allowed to track your finances by organization, but you can also go down to the specific funds or grants that you're tracking your finances with as well. And all transactions can be allocated to the different grants or funds or programs that you set up in the system. And with fund accounting, it adds additional funding features such as automatic due to, due from processing between funds as needed for cash accounting and also for accrual accounting. The system will also be set up to process your reports on a per fund basis or for your entire organization as needed. And the general ledger has lots of different reports for tracking your organization's finances. Several different reporting options that you can run when you select a specific report to run from the reports menu here, as I have just done. These are all of your core financial reports that you can run in the Denali system. And with fund accounting, you also have the FASB standardized reporting formats as well. And when you select the report you want to run, then you select which parameters that you want to run the report for and decide what you want to see on the report. There's different report types. Each report has various different report types you can run, and you simply click OK to run that report. I'll go ahead and run it for my administration fund here. And then the report is automatically populated on the screen showing you that information. Zoom out a little bit so we can see that a little better. And this is my budget report here. Shows my actual revenue and expenses for the current accounting period, which is October, and also for year to date, which is January through October. So those are my actual revenues and expenses. The third column is my budget. And then the fourth column is the difference, basically what I have left in the budget or if I have gone over budget for each line item on this report. And each of these line items are simply the chart of accounts set up in the general ledger for my administration fund. All of your transactions that you enter and post from all of the other accounting parts or modules will automatically flow into the general ledger through direct integration. All of the different accounting modules are fully integrated with each other and of course with the general ledger. So all of your accounts are tracked and updated automatically through transaction processing. Denali also has a cash management module known as the bank reconciliation. This is where you reconcile and manage your bank accounts, which is the cash for your organization. Each module has a workflow for entering transactions that you can follow. Very detailed workflow. You just follow the steps to enter and post your transactions. And in the bank rec, there's a reconciliation workflow as well. You just simply click the reconciliation and it brings up your bank account and you can pick and choose which items have cleared or have not cleared to reconcile your bank statement each month. Then you follow the steps to go to the reconciliation report, which shows you your information that you're reconciling through and a list of outstanding transactions that have not yet cleared as of the end of the current month that you're reconciling through. The accounts payable module is where you track all of your expenses for your organization. You also track your vendor accounts and vendor balances through the accounts payable as well. Accounts payable is set up to be very simple and work easily for you with the workflow. You can set up reoccurring automatic entries for expenses and vendor invoices, or you can do manual vendor invoice entry through the Enter Bills here. It's very simple to do. You just click the button and you have your bill entry screen. You put your vendor in, your invoice number, and your expenses for that invoice listed out here. Accounts payable also has more advanced accounting features for allocations, processing inventory entries, prepaid and future entries for prepaid expenses or cash basis accounting, and automatic allocations for allocating expenses across multiple programs or funds as needed. Once the bills have been entered, they're recorded in the accounts payable system, and then you have a lot of accounts payable reports as well that you can run to help track your current payables. You can run an accounts payable aging, total debt, cash requirements. Cash requirements is good when you're ready to pay bills. So if we're going to pay bills today, we're going to pay all bills that are due up to the end of the current month. Then this report will show us all of the current invoices under each vendor that I currently owe, and then I can do a check run to pay those bills. At the bottom of this report, I see a total of all invoices that are due and payable, total amount due, current invoices, this amount, then I have current debits or vendor credit memos, and then the total cash requirements needed to pay those bills. I run that report, and if your organization requires any kind of an approval process for paying bills, Usually that's done on the enter bills. They're approved at the time of entry. And then when it's time to pay those bills, we can do a check run automatically by selecting this option. The system will automatically generate those payments to pay those bills. And then we just print those checks and post those payments through. Or if we want to manually pay bills, one vendor at a time, we can select a specific vendor we want to pay, and then we can select which bills we owe to that vendor that we're going to pay. And the system generates a check for those as well. If there's any credit memos, we can also apply those credits to the current invoices. So in this case, this credit is being applied to this invoice, which reduces the check amount automatically by the credit. And it applies those credits automatically for me. Then I print the checks out and I go ahead and post those payments through. Your vendor tracking is done here in Accounts Payable. You can set up all the information you need for vendor tracking as needed. Vendor name, address, information, vendor terms. You can also track vendors for 1099 processing if you need to process a 1099 form for any of your vendors. For example, if I have a vendor here, let's see if I can find one. Here we go. If I have a vendor I need to track 1099 information for as I pay that vendor, then the process would be to obtain a W-9 form from the vendor to get their federal ID number, and then you enter that information here on the vendor information screen. Put in a federal ID number, or if it's an individual, it would be a social security number that you would enter here, and the system will format that automatically for you. And then you select the 1099 category that vendor needs to be tracked under. Those 1099 settings are only defaults. When you're entering expenses for the vendor, you can decide whether that particular expense is 1099 applicable or not. If it is 1099 applicable, then you can detail it on each line item, whether each line is specific to a 1099 category or not 1099 applicable at all. So you may have on one invoice, part of that invoice that's 1099 applicable, part of it that's not. And you can enter that information accordingly on the invoice screen. And then at the end of the year, when you process 1099 forms, it's a very simple process. You just simply go ahead and process your 1099 forms. The system automatically generates those forms for you. Now I've got last year's forms because it's only October right now and we haven't got the 2018 update yet for the 2018 forms, but those come out at the end of the year. About mid-December is when the 2018 forms will be available. Denali also has a very robust payroll system that you can run your payroll in as well. Now the Denali payroll is used to track all of the payroll transactions and automatically account for your payroll expenses. With the payroll, you can also allocate those expenses across different programs as needed. The payroll can also automatically calculate federal and state taxes, including unemployment tax. The system does have the automatic tax updates that you can run as needed, and you just simply click on there and select which tax code you need to update. Now, of course, I've got all the tax codes for all the states because I run a demonstration file here. But in your organization, you'll probably just have the federal tax code and then maybe one or two state codes. And when you select that option to update, the system automatically goes through and updates all your tax codes for you. And what happens when you do that, looks like my antivirus verified that update, it looks good. When you do that update, it automatically puts in the correct tax rates and cutoff amounts for the different tax types as needed. And then here on the federal tax table, this is your Social Security, Medicare, and unemployment tax rates. The withholding rates are actually tracked through the withholding table, and it's also based on whether the taxpayer is single or married, and that's where you see the withholding tables. And if you pull out the IRS Circular E and you look at the annual withholding table, it's going to look exactly like this, like you see here on the federal tax table, for the single or for the married tax filer here. And those are automatically updated just by running the tax update for you. Payroll can also be set to track various benefits and deductions, including pre-tax deductions as needed for healthcare plans or retirement plans. You can also set up various benefits that are company paid or any other items that you may need to set up besides regular salaried items. And then when you go in to set up your employees, I'll bring up one of my employee screens here. Then you set up your employees on the employee setup here, their name, social security number, filing status, and their address, the different options for those employees. You set up the various pay rates that the employee is going to be paid under, salary, and then their taxes. the exemptions, and any additional amount as needed. And the system will automatically calculate the taxes based on this employee's setup. You set up various benefits or deductions as well for the employees, such as 401k plans, retirement plans, pension plans, health plans. And then there's a benefit here, just says Jeremy, which is my name, by the way. I'm Jeremy. So you can set up those benefits however you need. The system can also track paid vacation, and it can be set up to automatically accrue paid vacation as needed and allow the employee to accrue paid vacation to be used for paid time off. You can set that up for vacation, sick leave, PTO, any other paid time off, paid comp time, and so forth. And Denali also works with the banks throughout the country for direct deposit. So you can set up the direct deposit information for your employees and process your payroll through direct deposit, so you don't have to issue a paycheck to each of your employees. They receive their net pay automatically into their bank accounts as needed. And once all of that information is set up on your employees, you just simply run your payroll once every 2 weeks or semi-monthly or whatever your pay frequency is, just by following the workflow here in the payroll module. Denali can also be integrated with various time tracking programs such as T-Sheets or other programs as needed. And basically they're programs where employees clock in or clock out as they come to work or go home at the end of the day, or even leave for lunch. And those hours that are automatically tracked on those time tracking programs can automatically be imported into the Denali payroll when you're ready to run payroll. And then you just simply go here with the first step, and the Denali payroll is seamless. It works very easy once it's set up correctly. You put in the check date. Let's say tomorrow is payday and we're paying for the pay period ending last week. And then you can also determine how the payroll will be expensed in the general ledger, to what date you want the expense to incur for the payroll. When you click the button here to populate your payroll, it automatically brings in all of your active employees with whatever hours that they currently worked for the current pay period that were imported through your time management program. But there is one employee here that there were no hours imported, so therefore it says 0, and it highlights that to let me know, is this employee, did they actually work this week, or do we need to just simply remove them from the current payroll run? But if you don't have a time tracking system, then you can manually enter the hours just by clicking the edit here and putting in the hours worked. Based on their setup, it will allocate those hours to the specific programs that you have set up in the system, but you can always allocate them manually here as well to the specific programs. Putting in the hours automatically calculates the gross pay based on their hourly rate, and it also automatically calculates the taxes. So at this point, the entry is pretty much done. So as you can see, if your hours are imported, or even if you manually enter those, you just plug in those hours one line at a time. The system automatically processes the payroll on the fly as you're doing that. And then it's just a matter of following each of the steps in your workflow. When you hit next, it takes you to the next step. You run your payroll report, then you print your checks. That's the next step here, printing checks and direct deposit stubs. I'm gonna actually run a check printing process here just to an XPS document writer. That way I can get check numbers to show you on the check register for the next report here. The system prints out the paychecks for you, and then once the checks are printed, then you print out the direct deposit stubs. And after that's done, you just process the next reports. There's my print job. I'll just cancel that. Then I go to the next report is my check register. Move that out of the way, which is this next step here. So as I click this next button in each step, it just jumps me to the next step in my payroll process automatically. And then I can run a nice, neat check register that shows a list of all the paychecks in the current payroll that I'm running. Check numbers, dates, and so forth. Now, because I'm such an OCD accountant, I like my check register to be in check number order. So using the sort by option, I can run the same report in check number order now, as you can see there. And then I just process the rest of my reports, generate my direct deposit. Once everything looks good, I post the payroll just by clicking next. There's my benefit deduction reports. The EFTPS report, that is my federal tax payment. And then it tells me what my total federal taxes are for the current payroll run. Generate the direct deposit, effective tomorrow, which is payday. Then I get a direct deposit disbursement report that shows me the employees' bank accounts that were direct deposited to. And I only had 3 employees in this case that had direct deposit set up. but each one has 2 different bank accounts. So you can even split the direct deposit across multiple bank accounts as needed. And then that's done. Then you go ahead and post the payroll through, and it automatically tracks the payroll expenses to the general ledger, tracks any payroll liabilities to accounts payable if needed, and all of your paychecks are posted to the bank reconciliation. Some of the other features you have in payroll is you can run all the reporting options that you have here for payroll, and at the end of the quarter you can also process your payroll taxes. At the end of the year, you can also run your W-2 forms as well. So when you're running your payroll taxes, you just select which tax form you're running, which quarter it's for, and when you hit the button, the system automatically generates the actual tax form that you can submit to the IRS for filing. And you'll see that pop up here. So this system gives you the actual tax form that you can process, automatically populated with your company information and your total numbers as needed for the current quarter that you ran the tax for. All the forms are included. If you're a semi-weekly depositor, it automatically populates your Schedule B on the 941. And then you just process this form, print it out. It can be printed on plain paper, sign it, send it off to the IRS, or you even have the option of electronically filing these tax forms if needed. Denali also is compatible with all 50 states to process the tax forms for the different states as needed as well, which also includes your unemployment forms. And these are the different state tax forms that you may need for your state as needed. Denali also has an inventory module for tracking inventory that you are buying and selling as well, or just tracking your business inventory if needed. The inventory is very robust as well. You can set that up to put in specific information about your stock items as detailed as you need. And if you're using the sales module, you can also set pricing information of what you sell your stock items for. There's several different options for that. You can do pricing based on quantity purchased or pricing under a level pricing based on customer type. You can also set up markup and margin pricing as well. So you specify a specific profit margin and the price is automatically calculated based on your cost of that item. The system tracks your item information, basically your current quantity on hand through the cost quantity. It also tracks the history of all stock items that have been sold, and advanced features you can set up for the item as well. Vendor tracking of who you purchase the items from. Several different options you can use for inventory tracking. In setting up your inventory, Denali has several different options for valuation. The 4 main valuation methods you can set up as needed. And then you specify the general ledger account structure that you're tracking your items under as well. Of course, all of this does post to the general ledger for you. So everything you do in any of the modules will be tracked automatically in the general ledger when you run your financial reports, such as a revenue and expense report or a balance sheet report as needed. So if I want to run my revenue and expense for the current period, very simple report that I can run, just showing me revenues and expenses for the current period. Several different report options I can run for that as well. If I run the comparative, I see the same period last year compared to the same period this year. And all of the revenue is tracked, current year, last year, and this goes back 2 years as well. So I got 2 years tracking here. And the system will show you the revenues and expenses. And all of that information is posted automatically for reporting purposes from any of the modules that you enter the transactions through. The inventory, you can do manual stock adjustments, but the stock is automatically adjusted when you receive items in through accounts payable invoicing or it's automatically deducted when you sell stock items through the sales module, like we were showing you a moment ago in invoice entry. But if you also need a more advanced purchasing functionality in your accounting, you can add the purchase order module as well. And that way you can write up purchase orders for inventory or for any other expenses in your organization that go through a purchasing requisition process for approvals before they're actually submitted and recorded as expenses in your system. And through the purchase order workflow, you can do purchase orders manually. You can set up recurring purchase orders that happen on a periodic basis, such as monthly. Or if you also have the inventory module, you can have the system generate purchase orders automatically based on inventory on hand. So when you're running running low on certain inventory items, the system can be set up to automatically generate those purchase orders. And then you run your workflow to print your purchase orders, verify accuracy of the transactions entered here, and then you post those purchase orders through. One of the features that you have in Denali's fund accounting, if you're using the fund accounting suite, when you post a purchase order, the system can be set up to automatically encumber the expenses for those purchase orders, even though you have not incurred those expenses yet. The system will post an encumbered expense to the general ledger. So you can run your reporting to show what is encumbered or what expenses you are incurring, even though you have not been billed by your vendors or paid those expenses yet. And that can be set up automatically through the purchase order system. Then once those items come in or the expenses have been incurred, you can receive those items in. And when you post those transactions, it automatically posts the invoices to your vendors and accounts payable. If you're dealing with inventory, it automatically adds those inventory items to your inventory. And then of course, all of the debits and credits are posted to general ledger for those transactions. Anything that was encumbered at the time you receive those in, it relieves the encumbrance and actually records the expense, the actual expense that you've incurred at that time. The purchase order system can be set up to be customized just like the sales system, but this is the purchasing side, the expense side, whereas the sales is the receiving side. So for most organizations, you will have a general accounting structure through the general ledger. You track your invoices and expenses through accounts payable. You also have the bank reconciliation for your cash management. But if you also need a receivable side of your organization, then we also have an accounts receivable accounting module as well for tracking customers or any other entities or individuals that pay your organization money. And the customer accounts can be set up here on the receivables side where you are tracking their information. Go ahead and grab a customer here, a Mr. Arthur here. Whoop, they're past due, look at that. So based on the settings, you can flag accounts that are past due on your receivables if needed, and that adds additional security features. You can put in the customer's account information, their address information here, bill to and ship to as needed. Customer contacts you can list, customer history as posted from the customer accounts receivable or the sales module, customer aging. All of the information can be set up here on the customer account, and then you have various aging reports you can run for this customer as well. So the aged analysis, this report shows a list of all the transactions for this customer and how much they owe for each one, if applicable. Most of these are zero, as you can see there, but we do have one here that has a balance due, which is reflected in their aging here. Now, most organizations, your aging periods will be 1 to 30, 31 to 60, 61 to 90. But on my setup, as you can see, you can customize those aging periods as needed. Basically, how aggressive you want to age your receivable accounts. You can also do that in the payables module as well. And then you do customer transactions here for adjustments and payments as needed. But your customer invoicing, we actually have a separate accounting module for that if you need that. You may not need that though, if all you need to do is enter straight charge and payment transactions directly to the customer accounts. But the invoicing is done through the sales module. So here you can go, there's two parts of that. There's the order entry or the point of sale, and you can obtain one or the other or both if needed. The order entry is specific for customer invoicing and entering orders. You click on here and it opens up your sales entry screen to enter customer invoices. And this screen can be fully customized as needed. Let's bring up our Mr. Arthur here. And this brings up his account on the invoice that I'm entering. And then I can verify which items I'm charging this customer for. There's some advanced features also that you can set up, and you can have those features automatically populate on the invoice as needed when adding items to your invoice. With customer invoicing, you can track multiple items as needed or just put it in as a single line item charge for the customer. Or if you need to set up a storefront where you need a point of sale system, you can also run a point of sale system to enter customer transactions as well, which works more like a cash register system. It's very similar, but it adds additional features for security for the cash register, where the sales clerk logs in and then they can go ahead and ring up the sales as needed for the customers. On the point of sale system, the customer is optional. If it's a cash customer that you're not tracking in receivable, you can leave that blank. Select the items you're charging your customer for, and ring those up on the sale. Then when you go ahead and bring up the sale, let's say the customer is paying $100 cash, total sale is $86.27. The system will automatically populate the change due for that sale and pop open the cash drawer just like on a cash register. The point of sale system runs daily closeout reports and balancing options to make sure that you account for all of your cash as well before closing out the day. And in the sales module, both order entry and point of sales, you've got a lot of different sales tracking reports as well, such as profit margin reports, price variance reports, sales by salesperson, by department, by item, by cash register with the point of sale, and so forth. Several different options you can run there for your reporting options and sales. But if you're a nonprofit organization or a government entity that does not need that big of a robust receivable system, then you may be fine with just the accounts receivable module, but the order entry and point of sale modules are there for you if needed. Okay, so the Denali accounting system is a complete, robust accounting system that gives you full access to all of the accounting information that you may need and also all of the entries. It has a very simple entry system in all of the different parts that you may need for your organization. And you can pick and choose which modules that you may need. Not all modules are required in order to run that. You could even purchase just a single module if that's all you need for your organization. But they all work together when you do have the different modules. So if you need any other information about Denali, definitely contact us. We do have representatives standing by that can answer any of your questions for you. You can go ahead and call the number on the screen there, 1-800-388-3038, or email to sales@cougarmountain.com. Give us a call and we can definitely answer your questions that you may have. Thank you so much and have a great day.